Hey guys, today we're going to talk about what I like to call the gift of hate. Hatred is an emotion most people like to avoid talking about, and they like to pretend it is not in their emotional portfolio. Even more than the emotion of anger, hatred is labeled as bad and it undergoes tremendous judgment. Yet the truth is, feelings are not right or wrong, good or bad. They're not even voluntary, they're involuntary. We can judge our behaviors because we have control over them. But why would we judge our emotions when there's nothing we can do? They're involuntary. In fact, our emotions are there for a very good reason, to give us wisdom, vital insight for how we should act. And this includes the emotion of hate. For example, if you are walking down the road with a small child and you both see roadkill, that young child will most likely say something like, "Ugh, icky." Would you judge that child's response and say, "Don't say icky, that's wrong"? Or would you say, "Yes, that's right. Dead things are icky. That tells us to stay away"? Hate is synonymous with the emotion of disgust. When we feel it towards someone, it tells us to stay away, which is actually for our benefit. Most people conflate hatred with rage or anger, but it's actually quite distinct. Let's talk about this. Anger is an emotion we have when we feel betrayed by someone and have expectations of that person to do better. Hatred, on the other hand, shows up when we have no longer any hope for the person and therefore no expectations for them to meet. In this way, hate can provide a sense of closure where we are no longer enmeshed with that person mentally or emotionally, strung along by false hope. Hate is not hot like anger or rage, but cold and empty. Hate isn't engaging, but apathetic and uncaring. It's actually more of an absence than a presence, because hate is an absence of love. On the contrary, the people we love most, we find the most infuriating because we still have skin in the game, not with hate. Most people view physical abuse as a sign of hate, yet abuse is most often driven by rage or anger. Hate is more of an absence and is more prevalent in neglect. It also manifests commonly as ridicule and mocking. Humans naturally and involuntarily feel hate when someone demonstrates active hatred of them. Our feeling of hate is an automatic response, whether we like it or not, and it is there to give us vital wisdom. Let me give you an example. When I was a baby, my grandfather took over my daily care when I was 9 months old. He was a nurturing caregiver, as opposed to my mother, who was not remotely nurturing. Because little Bronwyn experienced the active love of her grandfather, it didn't take long for little Bronwyn to know the difference between his love and my mother's active hate, or what we call neglect. And for me, at that young, tender age, to feel hatred for my mother. I absolutely know I felt hatred for her at a very young age because I recall starting at age 3, I would tell my father that when my mom died, I was going to marry him. So I know that's really like Oedipus kind of complex, but think about it for a minute. Even as a little 3-year-old, I was hoping my mom would die. At that age, my father was sporadically playful, and my grandfather was consistently loving and attuning. But my mom was none of the above. So, of course, little Bronwyn saw her as unnecessary and in the way. Now, most kids will not discover hatred toward their parent until later in their childhood when they experience the difference from an adult who is nurturing, like a teacher or a friend of a parent, or a parent of a friend. When they see how the other adult treats them with love and concern, they'll often unconsciously compare this to their own parent and realize that they have been robbed. I consider hatred to be a gift because it allows you to give up on a person and to live in reality. And here's the beauty of it. After we put that hatred to use by cutting off said person, there's no more hate, and we are hate-free. After 6 years of friendship with my former friend Mary, it dawned on me one day that she had zero trust in me, and she had no idea who I really am. And I felt hate. What happened in that moment was actually incredible because I had a full body experience. I had been talking to someone else at an event when Mary interrupted in order to give back to me a gift that I had just given her, as she believed that my gift was, in my mind, a way to humiliate and control her. When I realized that's how she viewed my gift and me, without my body, without my conscious permission, actually just turned its back on Mary like this. I literally just turned my back without even thinking about it. It was all my body could do was act like she no longer existed. My whole being was so disgusted by her that I just had to pretend she was no more. That night when I arrived home, I wrote her a goodbye letter outlining that she doesn't know me or trust me and how sick that is after 6+ years of friendship, and that she confuses me with her own mother. My sense of closure was immediate and certain. There was no deliberation, no confusion, and best of all, no more hate. There is, of course, a bad side to hatred, as with everything else, and that is what it is famous for. As a therapist, I believe the worst thing about hate is not its existence, but when it unconsciously shows up where it does not belong, such as Mary's unconscious hatred of me. You see, Mary is not unique when she was confusing me with her mother, because this is what we humans do. We project. We unconsciously confuse the people around us with our parents and our experience of our parents. If we had parents who were untrustworthy, it is very hard to really trust anyone. But when we become self-aware and allow ourselves to process our legitimate hatred at the parents who actively hated us, we get to stop conflating them, the parents, with everyone around us. We can learn to distinguish between those who are like them and those who are not. All humans naturally project, including yours truly. For most of my life, I would project my experience of my parents onto others. If a person did not look at me and make eye contact and smile, I would project that they were rejecting me and that they hate me. I would read between the lines. I would never, ever assume that maybe their countenance toward me was a them problem. I would always believe it was a me problem. I'd often think someone was mocking me when they weren't, because I was reading between the lines. If someone's face was neutral, I would assume that they didn't believe me or that they weren't remotely interested in what I was saying. I realized that all of these projections were from little Bronwyn, who experienced this chronically from her parents. I had to allow her to remind me of how painful those experiences were and share them with her. They were painful, but when she shared them with me, they were no longer overwhelmingly painful, because what's shareable is bearable. And I validated her. I validated her experiences. I helped her put all the shame that we felt as a result of those actively hateful parents in a big cardboard box, and I helped her give that shame back to the parents. And I let her know how good she is in my eyes. Not perfect, but good. And that people who hate her are the ones with the problem. That's a them problem, not a her problem. After I did this exercise that I call an integration exercise, I was able to finally distinguish between past and present. It became easier to trust people's true motivations and to know that if someone really is rejecting me, that's a them problem. I find myself being less guarded, less defensive, oftentimes not reading between the lines, and I experience peace now as a result. It was so healing to let go of hate that just did not belong. You see, when we continue to embody hate from the past, it leaks into the present, infecting us and our relationships, and it allows the monsters to win. I've shared this exercise before on this podcast, but it's worth repeating. One tiny little exercise that takes 2 seconds to do that I have done myself and I have seen phenomenal results with my clients is when we imagine looking the parent or parents in the eyes who actively hated us and just say out loud to them, I hate you. Now, the objective here is not to intentionally foster more hatred at them, no, but the opposite. It is to expel through our words something that is already inside us, infecting us and poisoning us. Why should their hatred continue to hurt us? Let's set ourselves free for once and for all. It is never too late to create a hate-free life for ourselves. Today is a perfect day to start. Won't you join me? Thanks for listening again. Guys, please share this with a friend. Please subscribe to this podcast and leave me an excellent review. Thank you so much.